And we're live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to
Yeah.
another episode of Spin from the Reel. Yes, I'm actually about to tweet out this link now because we had some time difficulties and technical difficulties as I just got off work and he's in a different time zone.
We're in
Barely.
two completely different time zones, but we're good now. We're all
Yes,
right.
we're good
Everything's
now.
fine.
So we're going to have a good show right here for you today. We're going to talk about the latest in Schmoedown news, everything that happened, everything that was going on.
This past week has been absolutely crazy. Just with
yes, it has.
Trades, signings, new tournaments, updates to the tournaments. We have a new draft layout. There's way too much going on, but we're going to try our best to cover as much of it as we can right now.
Yes, and like I said, I'm just tweeting out the link. I'm not that guy who just I'm gonna be on my phone while I'm on. It's not. That's not. I'm not that guy who I like to be on my phone while I'm podcasting. That's the big no-no, especially when you're trying to do this for a living.
For real, yeah.
We got a good show for you today. Chris and I have been talking Schmoedown even while we were prepping the show today, so that's always fun.
Heck yeah, brother.
But let's get it started off. I know you pulled up the cuts. There weren't that many high profile cuts that we had, honestly.
It was more so players that were either unable to compete or they were late round draft picks in the first place, which usually, if you would think of a cut, that's where my mind goes.
Right.
There, like you said, there weren't any notable cuts, at least cuts by players that had matches this season.
Right.
And it was expected, especially with the crop of free agency that we're going to get into in a second. There was just a bank of incredible players that either we haven't seen before or haven't seen too much of, but they have a bunch of potential.
Yes.
And these cuts were inevitable, honestly.
Yeah, I'm the most notable one to me, but that's just because it's a name I know, is easily Justin Kroll, who...
Yeah. The man's out here breaking scoops for Variety.
Exactly. I was about to say it was a Variety writer, if I remember correctly. But yeah, and I know I was watching Schmoedown backstage this past week, and the Finstock Exchange talked about BC, and he just didn't have the time commitment and everything. And I know people were talking about big things for him, so it's going to be interesting to see how this goes down for the rest of the season. But before like we just said, there's the cuts. There weren't really many memorable ones, but there were some pretty memorable trades. One in particular.
Oh God, the trades.
Sam Levine got Andrew Guy, his star partner, in Ethan Irwin, and man, was that a trade that none of us saw coming or expected.
Now, for those who don't know, Matt, what were the parameters of the trade that?
I actually have to pull this up. I know a first round pick.
The usual suspects picked up Ethan Irwin.
Yes. I remember that a first round pick was involved. Ken Knapsack was sent. Ada Paramo, Ken Knapsack, and a first round pick for Ethan Irwin. And that is just something that no one saw coming. And I want to get more into this, especially when we talk the new draft rules, because it's going to play into my full take on this.
Yeah, the draft rules.
But that was a trade that, I didn't see. I thought
no one saw it coming. No one.
Burnett literally traded his top 2 picks from the draft this year.
Who was it? Was it Ethan and James White?
Yep, he traded James White. I forget. I think James White was traded in the Brandon Hanna trade.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just wow, what's he doing now? But I can't lie. I like the ballsiness of what Sam Levine did. I mean, to just say, I need a guy, and you have this guy, and let's just work it out, make it happen, because I got to pair Guy with someone. I can't just have Guy alone. Granted, Guy's a fine player by himself.
1,000%.
But he's not a championship level player. And that's just...
I think he'll even be the first person to tell you that he's not like a Ben Bateman style singles guy. But I think that with losing McWeeny, that was a huge blow to what the usual suspects were doing. But now picking up Ethan, and honestly, shout out to Robert Meyer Burnett for just completely, essentially nuking his own team.
Yes.
And because he was the most active manager of that final day of trades.
I'm trying to find all the trades.
And he like you said, he traded his top 2 picks, got a butt ton of players back. He got some draft picks in return, which, and we'll get to the draft later in the show, because I have some thoughts on that as well. But I commend Robert Meyer Burnett for being the most shocking and unpredictable manager in the entire Schmoedown. And like you said, like, he traded his top 2 picks, Ethan and James White, in that order, and they both go to the usual suspects and the Den, respectively. Like, I can't fathom. I don't understand what Robert Meyer Burnett is doing besides being unpredictable. Is he tanking? Is he purposely trading away his top guys in favor of just essentially not calling it quits on the season, but just cooling it a little bit?
I don't think he's calling it quits, because what he is doing is fairly smart, because he's got 2 players in the Center Geeking tournament, which we'll talk about in a bit. And he said on backstage this week that part of the reason he made this deal was because of Ken. A Star Wars tournament has been announced. He didn't have a Star Wars player. Ken, a former Star Wars champion who could arguably get back to a championship match. He was thinking, what's going on right now? Points. He's trying to set himself up as best as he possibly could.
But just banking it on Ken, I can't. As much as I love Ken, I can't call this a good trade just for the acquisition of Ken Knapsack. I really can't. Especially with the Star Wars tournament and how it's laid out, he might not even make it out of his side due to one specific player that we'll get to when we talk about the tournament. But I like the JTE acquisition was cool, but when's JTE going to compete? See,
and that's the thing that on backstage this week, Roxy was talking about. That was her thinking behind making the trade, and the fact that a 3rd round pick was given up for JTE.
Yep,
like he was a 6th rounder, a guy who may only play 1 match if we're lucky.
And JTE is undoubtedly one half of the best team that we've ever gotten in the Schmoedown.
I would argue that Charles or above the line. I thought Patriots were overrated, but that's just
me. Oh God, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a different episode. But I think that if not the best, definitely one of the best.
Arguably
ever gotten in the Schmoedown. And yeah, like JT is good, 100%. But my man isn't there. And maybe this whole COVID thing will be in his benefit, because now, since we're doing everything online and we're Zooming everything, maybe he'll actually be able to compete more. But until it's shown to us and it's proven to us that he can do that, what a wash for RMB and what a good deal for Roxy.
And you could argue those were both of the trades that he made were just a wash for RMB and a good deal for Sam or Roxy. I need
to see how that Ethan trade goes, because Jader had 1 match and Jader was good. He was decent for his debut match against Brittany Young. Dug it.
Yeah.
And the draft pick, we'll see how that pans out with this new draft rule.
But here's the thing: he didn't even say how, in regards to how the draft is going to be set up. He hasn't talked about how picks are going to be decided. If it's just going to be random again, or if it's going to be based off of record.
And that's just the uncertainty of the draft again. And we're gonna get more addendums to this draft. How Christian laid it out for us will not be how it is finalized. It will probably change up until the day of the draft.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not, like, as much as I want to trust this new draft, I can't, because we've been shown, and the IG tournament bracket got changed the day after it got released.
It's got changed like 3 times since it's been released.
Exactly. So I can't hold Christian to his word for now. Obviously we're gonna get a new draft, but how that draft's gonna pan out, we'll see. So the draft picks that R&B traded or traded for or traded, we'll see how those pan out. I just can't bank on Knapsack being the one saving grace in all of this. And what is R&B doing? I think that was the biggest question that we got
And
from
at the
that
draft.
day.
Well, we had that question after the draft. But as much as we're saying, what is he doing? He's been performing well.
Yeah, like just look at the standings real fast. The Burning Droogs are fourth. Granted, there's a steep drop between first and fourth.
Right.
10-point difference. But still, like the Droogs are doing better than probably anyone thought they would. If you'd have told me that they're going to be better than the Quirky Mercs in corruption, in the dungeon, my God. It's like, okay, because even after Kaiser's disappointing drafts, I still thought he was going to do pretty decent, and we've seen how that's panned out since, even though Robert Parker is going to literally kick so much.
I was about to say, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Schmetz thing hasn't panned out like we thought it would so far this season. We thought he'd at least have like 2 matches done by now. Mm-hmm. They set up that match for him to play Chandru, which because of this tournament, I don't know where that's going, but we'll get there. But it's I think these 2 tournaments, along with all the moves that have been made in the past week, are going to really just set a new tone for the league going forward.
This is the jump start that the Schmoedown needed, especially after COVID really shutting everything down and us being out of the studio. Christian probably was like, yo, we need to shake things up. And the managers brought the dynamite to really blow this thing up. Because now, not only do we have a bunch of new factions, a bunch of new acquisitions, the draft is different. We're getting these new tournaments, which are going to take up a bunch of time. This is probably going to get us through at least, mid-July? Both of these?
Well, because
in August,
because the Inner Geekdom tournament starts May 20th, if I remember correctly. So, at least to the end of June, probably.
So we have so many matches down the pipeline, and just in Inner Geekdom and Star Wars, 2 of the most fun divisions, or probably the 2 most fun divisions that we have, they're made for fans.
For people to play along with.
Exactly, these 2 divisions are made for fans, and just the fact that you're giving us a bunch of matches for the beginning of the summer, I'm totally rocking with it.
Right.
But and we
although we thought we'd be going to Chicago in June, but I guess that's not happening.
Man, I'm about to be sad again. Look, so since we keep talking about these tournaments, let's just go ahead and might as well knock them out before we get to the free agent acquisitions.
Sure. Well, no, we got to cover the free agent acquisitions first because there are some of these free agents who are participating in the tournaments. So
you're right. So let's hit me with the free agents, my man.
So this is the free agency class of the Schmoedown for 2020. It is a strong one to say for sure. There are players in this class that I honestly thought should have and would have been drafted if I were a manager at the actual draft. I thought Molly Damon deserved to be drafted. Shawn Gerber, they're 2 underrated. Well, Molly, she's the one who's helping train Alex. So to think not to draft her
under the same roof, you would think Molly's just another Alex.
Exactly. Like she's probably got just as much knowledge on all this stuff as he does, and I wonder how all that's going to work in Household now that they're in separate factions and all that. And then to see the return of Perry Nemiroff after her hiatus from the Schmoedown, and Scott Mance, and to get, although they're separated, and I think I'm missing Robert's picture, but to have Late to the Party come back on different factions is a really interesting thing to go. I think Robert, he landed with the usual suspects, if I remember correctly. Yes. And I think that's a beautiful move by Sam Levine because in the Late to the Party matches, I always felt like he was the stronger competitor.
Oh, yeah. And not to rag on Vanessa, but Robert was definitely he was the Shawn Michaels of that Rockers team, to use a wrestling analogy for a second. He was the star, if I were to use that word, of the 2.
Yeah. I mean, Robert, he carried them a lot of the time, and that's even going back to their first match and the upset match, and like he's the one who hit that major question in the upset match at the end of it to get them that win, and just to have them break up, and I like both of them. We talked about this beforehand. I like both of them. I have no.
They were a good team.
They were a fun team to watch. But I think you're going to see who carried who, similar to what happened when corruption initially happened, and we saw Bateman end up with Riley. We saw that, hey, Bateman's actually carrying team action. Like that's just how it was. That's just how it is. So that's those are two signings I really like. But the signing that I personally loved, and I know you're a stan yourself, just of this person and the Schmoedown and the SEN sphere and everything in general, is Sabrina Ramirez to the Finstock Exchange, because that's my faction. That's the faction I follow to a T. I watch every match. I think Bobby Gucci's leagues about every other manager in this league, and despite what Roxy would say, but to be able to pull off a coup like that to someone who they have the knowledge because of their first cut, because of first cut, and she knows Ace and all this, and like I said, I was watching backstage when they basically said, yeah, Winston came with a weak take, but what the Finstock Exchange did to win her over is similar to kind of what the Warriors did to win KD over, where all of them were talking to her about, hey, this is what we can do for you. They think she's going to be a great player as it is already, but they just want to help mold her and trim off those rough edges and make her a more complete player. And I think that she's in the perfect faction to do that when you're playing with arguably 4 of the best players of all time.
What a faction to learn from.
Right.
Not only just to pick their brains and to be in their presence, but my God, these are some of the most these are some of the most studied players in the Schmoedown probably ever. Like Ben Bateman probably perfected studying for this thing, and to the point where he's teaching the man that a lot of people think is the GOAT in Dan Murrell how to study for these matches.
Right.
Like he's coaching the GOAT, and I can't fathom if I were Sabrina Ramirez, I'd be like, yo, this is the perfect faction. Even if I'm not perfect in the Schmoedown, they will teach me, they will show me how to be like the next Roca, or shit, even like Roca and Bateman, bring them together,
right?
Have them mold Sabrina to what she can possibly be. And I believe we haven't seen her really do anything movie trivia related. So I wonder how she's gonna do whenever her first match starts. But I am so curious, and if I were her, I'd be over the moon the second the Finstock Exchange talked to me. It's like I'm totally in. And just to highlight another couple free agents, Shawn Gerber going to Swag. What a perfect matchup, perfect team to be on. I love Shawn being with Winston and everybody else at Swag. It's such a fun faction. I love watching those matches because they're so much fun. They bring such an energy to the Schmoedown that Christian knew Winston could, and I'm so happy that he's a part of it. You already mentioned Perry going to the Quirky Marks. I dig that. Perry's return to the Schmoedown. Scott Mance coming back and going to R&B's Burning Drew.
It's the only one that made sense for him, honestly.
Exactly. I really dig that Scott's back. And now maybe with this COVID thing, that's how we get acquisitions like Scott Mance. Because Scott's a pretty busy guy, at least when he's not quarantined in his house. So now that we're going online for a bit, Scott can play a little bit more. And I love that acquisition. And just to really just to address the elephants in the room, Kevin Smith going to the Quirky Mercs again, another great
matchup.
Having Coy be Kevin's manager, even though I think Kevin will be perfectly fine on a mic on his own, but Coy will definitely show him the way of the Schmoedown and actually show him what's up. Coy, he's a good manager, and people sleep on Coy. I think he brings something different that a Finstock or a Roxy don't, or that they can't do. And I hate to say this, but Coy's like an everyman's man, and I don't want to disrespect my dude, but I love Koi, and he's probably the most relatable person I can think of. And to manage someone like Kevin Smith, the personality that is Kevin Smith, I think Koi can do that.
Well, when it comes to the Kevin Smith signing, also, and Koi was talking about this on backstage, it's a matter, and it's kind of what convinced Perry to sign with Koi. Also, it was just a matter of the fact that with Kevin, you know this on as much as he's doing these watch alongs and everything. Right now, setup is the perfect setup for a Kevin Smith. With Perry, it was she wasn't sure she can completely commit to the Schmoedown. She wanted to test her feet, get back in the water. She did a couple of these the matches that we have going on right now that are Patreon matches.
Oh, the exhibition ones, yeah.
That's the exhibition matches, and she's got the competitive bug again for it, so that's good. But she's like, I'm competitive right now. I don't know how long it would last. And Koi's like, you know what? That's fine because hey, I have Haley Fouch. We can partner you with Haley. You guys can make this really strong team, and that I think that'll keep this competitive bug in you going because hey, strong teammate. You guys help each other in your weaknesses, and you have this and similar strengths. So if they spin a strength, if they become a team, because I think that's being talked about, if they become a team and they spin a strength, say like horror, I don't expect them to miss a question at all.
Oh no,
like that's gonna be that Molly Damon and Sabrina are honestly my most underrated pickups. There are a couple pickups we haven't talked about, like Adam Collins, Sabina Graves, and Frank Moran. And Frank, I know, was in the free-for-all. Sabina is Shawn Gerber's former partner, and she's done pretty well for herself. She's shown she belongs in the Schmoedown, so that's really all I can say on her parts. But I know Adam Collins came from the fan leagues. We don't know much about him. This could be another Robert Parker situation from what's being talked about.
If the fan leagues have proven us anything, is that they pump out talent.
Yes.
My God. Whether it's Chance, Paul Oyama, Smets, and like you said, Robert Parker, Lord, like these, where are these fan leagues and where can I watch them? Because I want to see these next stars.
Where can I join them?
Yeah, it's like I want to see, like, because this is almost like the minor leagues
of the Schmoedown,
unofficially. And if we're pumping out people like Adam Collins, I want to see how he does in regular matches instead of the free for all. But like you said, we'll see what happens. And Corruption's a decent place to start. And Sabina is going to do great on The Usual Suspects under Sam's tutelage. And the other elephant in the room I wanted to acknowledge was Chris Jericho.
Yeah, your boy, you're wearing a shirt right now.
Yeah, I'm a Chris Jericho stan. Like, as a big wrestling fan, it's cool. Like, it was always cool to see the Schmoedown embrace the wrestling aspect of it, cutting the promos, doing the backstage segments, just embracing the face and heel stuff. Even though I don't like it when they say face and heel in character, that always rubs me the wrong way. But getting Chris Jericho, the most popular and most over wrestler on the face of the planet, you're now fully embracing the pro wrestling aspect of this. And I love that Chris Jericho is also, it's not just something he's like, yeah, I'll throw them a bone. No, he genuinely cares about this.
He cut a freaking promo.
He cut a promo on what's going on, fully embracing the rock stars, the faction he's going to. Yes, please. Roxy, good on you. You stole free agency. Yes, Molly Damon's a great acquisition. Shawn Gerber's a good acquisition. Sabrina Graves or Sabrina Ramirez. Sabina Graves.
All good acquisitions.
All great acquisitions. But my God,
what people aren't talking about is Jericho has his own movie podcast too. It's not like he's just some wrestler who's gonna come in and do a celebrity match. This is a guy who really knows what he's talking about.
Like this isn't just something that he commits, that he's gonna half-ass, to put it lightly. He's gonna commit to this, and Booker T even talked about it on his Hall of Fame radio show with Brad Gilmore. It's like Jericho commits, like he's going, like, and he's probably gonna be underrated going into this thing. I want to see how Jericho does in this type of element, and if he really has that movie knowledge that he's been amping up for a long time now, not even just before the Schmoedown or Jericho going to the Schmoedown became a thing. Like, I want to see what Jericho does, especially under Roxy Stryer, if Roxy is going to have any real big leeway with Jericho. And I say that because Chris Jericho, he's a pro wrestler, and if he brings that personality that he has on AEW Dynamite every Wednesday to the Schmoedown, we may have some problems going forward, because Jericho, he's a leader. He's definitely he leads the inner circle on Dynamite every Wednesday, and I'm curious to see how he does under somebody. If he brings that same charisma, if he brings that same character to the Schmoedown, I'm so curious to see how that goes. But Jericho coming to the Schmoedown is one of the biggest things that the Schmoedown has ever done. 100%. Whether it's the live events are cool, going to Celebration was cool, but my God, Jericho can slingshot this more so than, dare I say it, even a Kevin Smith can. Yeah. And it's probably going to be their first match is going to be against each other. They've been hyping it up for months.
And they're friends. They're buddies. Like,
yeah,
Jericho was Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Yeah. So I want to see how Jericho does, and God willing, if we do get back in the studio soon, and if Jericho's still competing, I would love to see Jericho in studio interact with some of these people. Right. I would die to see Andrew Guy and Chris Jericho just go off of each other in promos. Give them a segment. Let Jericho interact with Finstock. Are you joking? This is gold.
Classic.
There's so much potential just with the Chris Jericho acquisition, and the same thing can be said about Kevin Smith. Yes. I want to see Kevin Smith, because him being so maybe naive to this thing, and
he's not naive, because they were talking, or Corey was talking about on Backstage. Yes, I'm referencing Backstage. I literally watched it in preparation for the show today. He was talking about Kevin's been aware of the Schmoedown for 5 years. He's been on and off paying attention.
Yeah, because Mark Bernard and his man on Fat Man on Batman.
Exactly.
Mark's no stranger to the Schmoedown.
Mark's competed, what is it, like 4 or 5 times? Like
about a handful, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these two acquisitions, I'm wondering if these two acquisitions start opening the floodgates and giving the Schmoedown a wave of some of this well-known celebrity talent who actually knows what they're talking about at the same time. Because that would be awesome.
The celebrity matches have always been something where, there's special events. They come in one time, they do a match, and then they're out, and they're not a part of the league necessarily. But now we're finally getting some star power in this thing outside of our little movie circle that has been built on YouTube. Because a lot of these people we are familiar with due to their work, but Jericho, he's been on top of the pro wrestling scene for over 20 years, and Kevin Smith is this well-established director who has his own following just due to his films.
Right. So we just did an entire episode on him.
Yeah, it's so we now have this star power that is a part of the league, and hopefully we can see it just drawn out to its full potential. And we've even seen with the Chris Jericho acquisition, Jen Sturger, who is the first common ground between AEW and the Schmoedown. Now she's enticing Cody Rhodes, or
who's
the American Nightmare Cody, to come do Star Wars, or maybe even do a little Star Trek exhibition, because he's a big Trekkie as well. So I would love to see a Cody come in and do something like that, because he's no stranger to Star Wars as well, and he's even acknowledged the Schmoedown on Twitter. And I know I sound like a mark when I say that, oh yeah, Cody's acknowledging the Schmoedown on Twitter, but that's real to me. And now that we're getting these Zuma matches, and with Jericho doing it, what is stopping Cody from jumping into Star Wars? Exactly. What's stopping him? I get it, he's a busy man being a VP at All Elite Wrestling, but we're really opening up some avenues, and Jericho and Kevin Smith's acquisitions to the Rock Stars and the Quirky Mercs respectively are massive, and I think we'll reap the benefits of them going forward, at least through the end of this year.
Right. No, I completely agree 110%. It's easy to admit that. we've been talking all week leading up to this about how excited we are and everything.
Yeah.
And that is, and our excitement's continuing on to this, and you can
I'm
see it
so
throughout the pages. I like all the reactions to some of these. It's just everyone's happy to have the Schmoedown back, even in some capacity, and then pulling off moves like these is just blowing it up even bigger than it was before.
I can't, like, obviously, like the two of us we're probably just echoing the sentiments of everyone that's on the Facebook page, everyone that's on, like, I'm a part of the Schmoedown subreddit. Like, people are excited for these moves, and with what is going on with the future of the league at the moment, it gave people that jumpstart that I talked about earlier. Like, you needed to revamp the league without really shaking things up too much, and just by naturally letting managers cut the players who can't compete this year or that weren't competing anyway, bringing people that are going to compete, that are going to dedicate their time to this thing. I'm really curious to see how this thing progresses, especially the Zoom matches were a bummer. And I'm pretty sure everyone was bummed because it's not the in-studio stuff and it'll never be the same. But I think this gives us enough excitement to carry us into the Zoom matches. Once you actually start getting them, especially with guys like Smith and Jericho, then by all means, let's keep doing these until it's okay to go back in studio. Then let's get Kevin and Jericho in the studio, hopefully. But let's rock with this thing. I'm so excited for the rest of the league this season.
Yeah, and as much as we are praising it, I do have one criticism about how all this has been going down, and that's that there's a free agency deadline before there's a trade deadline. Now, I'm a big sports guy also. I love my sports. I love my football. I love my baseball, or I don't love baseball, but I follow it enough because I want to work in the entertainment news sphere, whether it be sports or movies and TV or whatnot. So I got to keep up with the stuff. And the fact that we have a free agency deadline before a trade deadline is kooky to me, because in the majority of sports, you can sign a free agent up until like right before the playoffs are about to start.
Yeah.
So to me, if I was a manager, I would want the trade deadline before the free agency deadline, because okay, I got this one guy who's not performing. I gotta cut him and let him. It forces managers to make tougher choices, in my opinion, because instead of being able to trade someone who may be underperforming that someone else may be interested in, but you know they have that potential. Like, let's say a month and a half down the line, let's say Sabrina's had 2 matches and she flopped both of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they all still see that potential in her. They know they just got to coach her up more. But say somebody else just got cut who can help bring up your points and your ranking in the standings. If I'm Finstock, well, the trade deadline's passed, so I can't trade, but this person's a free agent. Am I supposed to just miss out on getting them, or do I have to make a tough call? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is the first time we've had something like this sports-like feeling in regards to moves being made, trades, free agent acquisitions. And this is, I think it will obviously change going forward. Like, we'll see, like, and we've talked about this already, and we're going to go into it more, but like the draft's going to change. We're going to get accustomed, and we will find a rhythm, hopefully sooner rather than later, that allows for Schmoedown to make moves like this. I'm totally with you though on you can only sign free agents for X amount of time, but it's like, oh, you can do trades, whatever.
If I remember, the trade deadline is like in August or something.
Yeah, like so.
And normally you have the trade deadlines middle of the season, and then, like I said, that playoff time, especially if managers are now picking who they're throwing in tournaments, it makes more sense to me to have the ability to pick up a free agent who you think could play well in the tournament and put him in there, and so on and so forth.
Because you would think that it'd be easier to do.
Yeah.
And are they allowing cuts to be made for the rest of the season?
I believe you can still cut people. I just think you're just
You just
stuck
can't
with
pick
them.
anybody up.
Yeah.
Okay, so hypothetically, like if we were to swap them and the trade deadline just happened, which I can't. Then again, people are so unpredictable. I can't see any other major trades happening
Right.
anytime soon. At least until matches start really going again, and we see the performances of some people. But if we were to have the trade deadline like now, and then the free agency deadline, it still allows for players to be dropped, picked up, like how it usually would be done. But at the same time, you run into the problem of it being like almost like fantasy football,
Yeah.
where you drop whoever you want during the week. Obviously, you have your locks. The people you're not going to drop Ben Bateman, you're not going to drop John Roca, but you're just dropping people and picking them up like crazy. And it's almost like, what's the word? It's disheartening for people that are like, they're not the Rileys and the Merles of the world. So I totally see it, and I think it will be swapped at some point. It only makes sense, but maybe we'll have like a rate of how many times a manager can drop a player, can pick up people, trades. But we'll see. But how it was done now, I'm okay with. I haven't.
I was just talking
this one time
because I know Christian's gone on record like I try to listen to the fans. I try to listen to what's going on in the fan leagues or in the reaction shows, everything. So if for some reason he's listening, that's just one thing I wanted to bring up. But moving forward, we do have 2 tournaments we got to talk about, which
brother.
Yeah, I titled this episode "That's a Lot of Schmoedown" because there's just so much to break down.
There's way too many. Like this is all in a week.
Yes,
all done in
a week span, starting from like last Thursday to now. So
yeah, it's nuts. Honestly, it was nuts.
So let's go with the first tournament we got right here. We got the Star Wars tournament, which will be streamed exclusively on Twitch, and I think it's going to get played back on YouTube, but you'll be able to watch the episodes live on Twitch. And this is part of the reason why we were doing the trades and free agency first, because look who's participating in the Star Wars tournament, Miss Molly Damon, who, like we said when we were talking about the free agency pickups, and notice she's got the top seeded position on her side of the bracket. You have Scrimshaw and DiMolanta going up against each other in the first round. If going based off of the 2 matches that we had at Celebration this past year is anything, that's going to be really interesting to watch.
That match can be good.
Because if I remember correctly, it came down to Scrimshaw, DiMolanta, and Laura Kelly at the match at Celebration.
Yes.
Okay.
To my knowledge, yes.
Yeah. So with that, and in all honesty, I think DiMolanta's due. I really do. I think he's finally gonna get. I think he's gonna get over the Scrimshaw hump. I don't know if he'll. I'm sorry, but I do have Molly Damon just destroying Adam Witt because, like we said before, she's studying with her husband. I ran into them at Celebration, and she knows what she's talking about, just as much as Alex does. So I think on that side of the bracket, you got Molly knocking out Witt, no issue, who we saw going against Shawn Sullivan earlier this year, and Shawn pulling out the W, if I remember correctly. And then you have Scrimshaw, DiMolanta. I think DiMolanta is going to win, and then it's going to be those 2 going head-to-head. And that's going to be a toss-up. I don't know. If I had to choose, I'm probably, and this is going to be tough for me to say, I'd probably choose DiMolanta because he's had enough matches to get used to the rules. Molly's been on the sidelines up until now.
Sure. Yeah.
But knowledge-wise, it's like apples and apples. They probably know the exact same stuff.
I think Molly's been exposed to the Schmoedown enough, at least to get a feel for what's going on, even though she hasn't really participated in it. You're right on DiMolanta. Like that, he's going to be a stud in this tournament. It's not as crazy as the Inner Geekdom one is, but this, I honestly think out of the 4 matchups, or including the playing game, which I have Andres going over, but Knapsack's gonna go over Andres.
See,
Laura Kelly over Shawn and Sullivan.
Yeah, I agree with that. But like the Knapsack, or the Knapsack Ace match that could happen really has me. I'm craving that match because they were co-hosts on Collider Jedi Council after Christian left.
Yeah.
So and that's why I think Ace is gonna get over on Quevedo because Ace knows what he's talking about. He co-hosted a Star Wars show. He knows what he's talking about, and to go up against someone who he talked Star Wars with is just going to be fun to watch. Now, Laura Kelly,
it's gonna be fun to see Andres and Ken compete against each other, and I want to see how those promos go, how the banter between matches goes. I really want to see their interactions with each other. Laura Kelly and Shawn Sullivan.
Laura Kelly made it. She's played up against Alex Damon and held her own. I think she's just going to cakewalk through Sullivan.
And I honestly think Laura Kelly, as much as it bums me out, is going to take this side of the bracket.
Yeah,
I think
I'm hoping Ken pulls it out, squeaks it out, but I think you're right.
Oh, trust me, I want Ken to bring it. I want Ken to be and I talk about this match all the time. It probably is my favorite match I've ever watched. But the Iron Man match between Sam Witwer and Ken Knapsack, it's probably my favorite thing the Schmoedown has ever produced, at least match wise. I love that match.
I don't know.
It's the one I've rewatched the most. I'll say that.
I rewatch Roca Merle a lot, but match wise, I kind of like the Above the Line Patriots Iron Man match a little bit more.
Another great match, and there are a bunch of incredible matches that I've seen and that I've rewatched. Another one is Guy and Merle. I love that match for obvious reasons, but I've shown people Witwer and Knapsack, and they had no idea what the Schmoedown was. They just liked Star Wars. They liked it, or maybe even loved it. They were fans, and I showed them that match, and they're like, "Yo, this rules!" It's like, tell me about it. Tell me. Imagine watching it through my eyes in my bedroom, marking out at these incredible matches, especially with the finish of the match. And I want Ken to go back to that. Ken is probably hungry.
Ken is the original Star Wars champion.
He is the OG Star Wars player. This man, he is the man. And I want hungry Ken back. I want Ken to be hungry at this thing. Trust me, I would love for Ken to win this tournament. I'm just thinking that, like you said, Laura Kelly played against Alex Damon and brought it. She didn't go over, but she definitely brought it and proved herself not only to Alex, but to the rest of the league, and to the fans. Because I wasn't familiar with Laura Kelly until she played. I did not know where she came from, but she played and she brought it. So I want to see this match, and I think we will see it. Mm-hmm. And who goes over, God knows. But if we get hungry Ken playing in his tournament,
it's a wrap.
I don't know. Even on the left side, Molly Damon obviously being married to the current Star Wars champion. I'm fully expecting her to know just as much, if not a little bit, just a little bit less, because obviously Alex is he is Star Wars explained.
Exactly.
But I want to see her knowledge level, and we'll see that against Adam Witt. But Scrimshaw and DeMolanta will probably be the best opening match that we're going to get in this thing.
Yeah.
And
in any other circumstances, that would be a semifinals or a finals match.
Yeah. And Christian, I don't know who laid this tournament out, but boy, that bottom left is ridiculous.
Yes.
It is ridiculous. This left side's ridiculous.
That left side in general, if you just switch Knapsack with Adam Witt or Laura Kelly with Adam Witt, that would be
unfair.
The most overpowered side. The first two matches in this thing would just be championship caliber matches.
I'm so stoked to see Scrimshaw and DeMolanta. I don't know who's going to go over. I'm going to say DeMolanta for now, but Scrimshaw can. I don't want to sleep on my man. And we got to see him at Schmoedown in Chicago last year, and he knows his stuff. It's just Alex Damon was a monster. He was like how Robert Parker was in his debut match. Just an absolute killer. And maybe Scrimshaw again. We can get that. If we can get that hungry side of Scrimshaw, then yes, please. Give me this whole tournament can rule. Every match can rule.
We saw Scrimshaw Damon 2 or 3, was that 2 or 3? We saw that live last year in Chicago, and I remember as we've stated on all the shows that we've been on so far, that's how we met. And I remember us jumping, and you were sitting in front of, like, we were in line together, and then you and Toby are sitting in front of me, and we're just jumping, cheering, like losing our minds.
It was nuts, dude. And Scrimshaw, like, yeah, he's the stand-up comic, but he brought it, dude.
Right.
Like, especially to a live crowd. And Alex is a killer. Like, he's been champ for how long now? Like,
he won the championship, if I remember correctly. He won because he won it the December, the Spectacular before Chicago. So a year and a half, basically.
That is ridiculous. And I can't, like, I can't fathom how unheard of that is. We've seen monstrous title reigns before, but maybe it's just because the division isn't shown as much. But still, you can't deny Alex's performances.
Right. And I know Alex doesn't put himself down, but has said, and he even said it at Chicago. He's like, I kind of feel like there's an asterisk by my name right now because I haven't played Whitworth.
Yeah, and the day, if it ever happens, and maybe this is the perfect way to do it, but no one picked up Sam, at least in the free agency.
Sam's kept himself out of it, and we don't know. And here's the thing. I can understand why he's not in it, because realistically, let's say he were to win. Well, he's got to go back to filming stuff soon. So what do you do then? He's got to abandon the championship again. That doesn't make any sense. Now, in these exhibition matches they've been doing, I'm surprised Christian hasn't been like, hey, Sam, why don't we do this exhibition match of you versus Damon, like how Rocky and Apollo did their exhibition match at the end of Rocky 3.
Yeah, we can just have a little fun match just for the fans.
Exactly. And I say, since we're talking about Schmoedown, I know it's not Star Wars, but I say that when it comes to Merle Levine, everyone has wanted to see that match. Sam has been like, I'm staying retired. Why don't we get an exhibition match of that?
Yeah, just for fun, man. Like, and I honestly think Sam will come back to the Schmoedown at some point, but I think at least for a match, he will come back to the capacity that we had him in. Unfortunately,
I think maybe an exhibition match, but even when I talked to him at Wizard World Cleveland this past March, and watching last.
Oh, let me rephrase. I'm talking about Whitworth.
Oh,
I'm talking about Sam Whitworth.
Okay.
Sam Levine. Oh no, that man's managing. That's great. Sam Whitworth
not coming out of retirement.
Yeah, Sam Whitworth. I believe that he'll be back in some capacity at some point. It may not be this year, but
I think we're at least
Sam Whitworth again.
He's a working CW actor right now, and I say CW actor because the CW likes to bring over all these different actors to just continue on all the different shows. He started off on Supergirl. This season he was on Riverdale, so who knows what he could be on next. So,
but to sum up this tournament, it's going to be nuts. And if there are upsets, please give them to me. Like, I want to be wrong because that just makes for better matches and makes it better content. But a Final Four, Damon, DeMolanta, Kelly, and Knapsack, how it goes from there, I have no idea.
Yes. But we do have another tournament to talk about, and that's going to be a longer discussion because this tournament is freaking huge.
This is absolutely insane.
I must say, I feel like I have to say this. Once again, I feel like one side is more heavy-handed or heavy-fisted, whatever you want to say, compared to the other side. Because on one side, you have the Barbarian, Adam Hlavik, Janine, Chance, Paul, Robert Parker, and people. We see Jim Viveda in a playing game. People, and we were talking about this before. People forget that Viveda has the knowledge. It's not about his lack of knowledge when it comes to Schmoedown. It's about his lack of knowing how to play the game. So it only makes sense to not sleep on Viveda on this side. But on the other side, okay, we got Brandon Hanna, we got Saul, which that's going to make it for a great match right there.
Oh, I love that Saul promo. Saul brought it, dude. I loved it.
Cut a promo. Then you have Alex Damon, who's finally stepping into Inner Geekdom. So that's going to be an interesting one to look keep an eye out. I don't know much about Jen Kemp. Emily Rose Jacobson. She showed she belonged in her match in Atlanta against Damon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So there, let's say, and keep. I don't think she'll beat Zipper. Zipper's just had a tough go. Like, this dude is always right on the cusp.
He's good. He just gets put in against bad matchups, dude.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Eric Zipper. And especially in a faction that is dominated by inner geekdom players. Like, Eric Zipper, he's, I don't want to say he's slept on, but man, he's gotten a bad go.
Yeah.
And the Stacy match that he had a couple weeks ago just proves it.
Yeah.
Like, he had a great match.
Not get the luck of the draw.
It just wasn't good enough. It wasn't great enough.
Right.
So I feel bad for Eric, 100%.
But then Kalinowski, oh my God, he has such an easy path to the semifinals because he's gonna play the winner of Alba and Warfather, and I haven't seen Alba in anything other than teams basically. So I got to give it to Warfather in this case. So then he's gonna play Warfather. Warfather is good, but he's not Kalinowski good.
Yeah, KO is nuts.
So
like, I how can you not? Oh, geez. And we've seen Zipper, Jacobson, and Damon. So Kemp, I'm unfamiliar with as well. Saul, this is going to be his debut in the Schmoedown.
Yes, it is his debut.
And Brandon Hanna, we've seen how Brandon Hanna's been in the last couple weeks, and especially how he's been handled between factions. So maybe he has a chip on his shoulder. Like if we get, I hate to keep using this word, but Hanna has to be craving to prove something to this league, right? Not only with how the Den just like dumped him to the Drews. Like I want to see what Hanna can do, but man, I say that, and then I saw Saul's promo before we started recording this show.
Oh, dude, it's nuts. It's
Saul
really
tore
nuts.
him a new one. Saul, like, and this is coming from a guy that, the Saul gimmick on what was Collider Live. I dug it. It was funny. I love that he was just like, he was a real life Finstock, and it was so weird. But Saul, this is the first time I really got to see some, like, not only him and Schmoedown related things, but he kind of brought a different energy that we've seen anything we've heard of him before.
Right. He was dark.
Mad.
He was angry, and I was like, yo, this is not the
like,
fun-loving guy I know from Collider Live. What is this?
I'm like, who is this man? And now I want to see how he does in this.
And with the hair and beard, the quarantine hair and beard, you look like a freaking madman.
I want to see this match against Brandon Hanna so bad. Because Hanna also has something to. Both of these guys have something to lose now. Because Saul brought it to Hanna.
Yep.
And if Saul can't take the L now, if Hannah's already like, yo, the Den mistreated me. I have this chip on my shoulder. I'm talking smack to everybody on the Facebook group. Like, no one, like, Brandon Hanna's bringing it, and Saul's bringing it too. This is probably one of the most anticipated matches now, solely off of Saul's promo.
Well, the story behind it too, because Kate chose to put Saul into the Inner Geekdom tournament based off the fact that Brandon had already had a match.
Mm-hmm.
And if he was put in the tournament, he was going to be playing Robert Parker right away. And she didn't want to do that to him. So she's like, I'm putting Saul in. But she didn't want to sit him out. And she did what was right by Hanna and traded him.
Yeah.
Now, I know, let's put kayfabe aside for a minute like they do on Backstage. Kate, if you want to get the full-on scoop on what exactly this full situation is, go watch Backstage from this past Tuesday. Kate basically broke it down as, hey, look, we talked. We thought it'd be best. She didn't want to trade him, and he wasn't really wanting to request a trade. It was just a matter of, hey, this is what's best for you. I don't want you to get lost in the shuffle because of this decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But inadvertently, with the trade, it created one of the most anticipated matchups.
Oh yeah, and
at least of the first
storyline.
Yeah, and the story's great, and I can't credit, like, that's how much I love that Saul promo. Like, if you'd have told me like, hey Chris, are you excited for Hannah and Saul? If you'd asked me that last night, I'm like, nah, not really.
Like, you'd be like, I'm interested to see Saul. I've seen Hannah before, but let's see what Saul can do.
Yeah, like I would love to see what Saul does, just because like we only know him as the personality from what was Collider Live.
Yeah.
And now after this, I'm like, oh my God. Like I need to see this match now. Like, and Christian either has to start the tournament with this match, or it's going to be one of the most anticipated first round.
Be the last one in the first round.
Good.
If he's smart, he's going to keep building up the anticipation for it.
Make me wait for it.
Everyone watches it.
If they're both going to be dishing on each other, then please. Like, I want to see these promos really bad. Get them on SCN, get them on Backstage, let them talk their smack, and I will be the happiest boy. But just to move on from Saul and Hannah, because we're super excited for the match.
Yes. What would you say out of the first round? Your top three your other top two most anticipated matches are outside of Saul and Hannah, because I think right now we both agree that's like number one. Right? Actually, that's probably my number two. But go
ahead.
My number one most anticipated match is Chance and Paul, because there's that history there from the fan leagues.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then after that, I'd have to say Robert Parker versus whoever he plays. Those are my three most anticipated ones.
I want to see Hlavik and the Barbarian. I like that matchup. I really want to see it. But my honestly, Ellison and Oyama is gonna be a barn burner, dude.
Yeah.
I'm jonesing to see this thing. And if Hannah and Saul like didn't have their promos, if they didn't start doing it now, I want to see what Oyama and Ellison can do.
Right.
Because like you said, they have a similar background coming up in the league, and they've both been successful in their own paths.
Right.
And now they're both of them, they're successful, but they're around now. And this match can be a jump start, a star maker to either one of these guys.
Yeah.
Granted, you're going up against Robert Parker, or the winner. No, that's who are we kidding? You're going against Robert Parker in the second round. But I want to see Oyama Ellison really bad. Like I like them both, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Chance when he first showed up. I wasn't the biggest fan of Oyama when he first showed up.
I've liked Oyama. I like Oyama's character change. Still not a Chance guy. Great player.
Oyama's character since has been great.
Oh yes.
Like he kind of, and as messed up as it sounds, I know he was going through a lot during the title match in December, but he kind of needed it, because now like he came back to the league with this whole different energy, this whole different
energy, just like.
And I love it.
I want to be more.
I love seeing it. And Chance is essentially just a spin-off of Kalinowski, what Kalinowski was doing with Corruption, just not doing it as charismatic degree. But I still dig what Chance has been doing. So Oyama Ellison, boy, that match should be killer. And to mention a killer, Mike Kalinowski, he's gonna have his way with that right side of the bracket.
Oh yeah.
I unless Mike stumbles.
The only challenge I could possibly see for him is if Alex Damon comes out and plays in Inner Geekdom like he plays in Star Wars. That's the only way I see KO getting a challenge.
Which would rock my world if Alex became a monster in Inner Geekdom as well, to a Star Wars type level. Are you joking? Like that? It'd be nuts. And then I would love to see Kalinowski Damon. But that top side of the right, of the top of the right side, I can't. It's hard to pick someone that's going to come out of there because of our unfamiliarity with Jen Kemp. And I want to see what Saul and Brandon Hanna do in this tournament. And Alex, we already seen Alex in Inner Geekdom, but is he going to be that Star Wars-esque player in the IG, or is it just going to be?
I mean, we did see flashes of that in the Atlanta live stream. He did show flashes where he just hit a run and then he missed a couple, and then he hit another run and he missed a couple. So,
but in these Inner Geekdom matches, at least what Kalinowski, Robert Parker, and what Kevin Smets have proven to us is that you need to be on it.
Yeah.
If you miss a question, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Because then it's going to get in your brain, especially with these guys being damn near perfect game caliber players.
Yeah.
But I want to see how this tournament goes. We can make new stars out of this thing.
I was just about to say you're talking about new stars and not knowing how people are going to perform. Considering what the Barbarian's going through right now, and I know everybody deals with grief in different ways. He did lose his wife. I hope he's doing. He and his family are doing well, and he's recovering. I know that's got to be hard to deal with, but some people throw themselves into their work or throw themselves into a situation where they're so consumed in that it helps them deal with their grief. And I'm wondering if he's doing that with the Schmoedown. I know Rocha says he is, but we as fans don't know that for sure. And I think that match is going to show us, because we saw him in singles. He had a hell of a singles first outing. I'm really interested to see if that continues on in the Inner Geekdom, because Slavic is a proven commodity. He's not fantastic, but he's still fairly good. So
he's not like S tier Inner Geekdom. He's not with the Smetses and the Kalinowskis. And I don't want to throw Parker up there, at least right now, because it was one match.
Parker's got to get to a championship match and bring it down to the wire, losing or winning, before I consider him up there.
Yeah, and that character, man, we need to work on that character. But I want to see what the Barbarian does against Adam Plavik, because like you said, Adam Plavik's been a part of this league for a bit. He's no stranger to Inner Geekdom, and he's good. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Janine, I want to see what Janine does in Inner Geekdom. Both members of the Real Rejects. Like, we've seen them in teams and
singles for John Humphrey, at least.
Yeah, and John, and his performances in the free for all proven to us that dude's
a hell of a player.
He's another one of those unpredictable people. He may be a stud in Inner Geekdom, and we just don't know.
Right.
So, and we'll see how that match is against Janine, and that could be the show stealer of the first round. Janine versus John Humphrey. I want to see that match. Zipper and Jacobson. Like, that's going to be another incredible match.
Yeah.
But
I think that was an even keeled match, realistically.
Yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, if the final isn't Parker v. Kalinowski, I'll be shocked.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about the tournaments. We talked about the cuts, trades, and free agency. Now, all I really have left to talk about is this new draft format that Christian talked about the other day on SEN, where he basically said we're going to do managers get 4 keepers, but they have to still negotiate with those.
You have to sign your players
to re-sign them and all that. So we're talking about the San Levine stuff and how that trade is going to end up panning out. Earlier on, and it's just we're trading draft picks now. We got to start to get an idea of what it's like. So that first round pick, considering you only get 4 keepers, is actually really valuable, because that's how you're filling that mid-tier talent, it seems like, in the Schmoedown.
I want to know how many factions we're going to have before I really start getting excited for the draft. Because we can have factions can have 4 guys or 4 people. So if it's Kaiser still being a manager and he locks down his top 4 Inner Geekdom players, because he essentially has a monopoly on Inner Geekdom at this point. Same thing goes for the Finstock Exchange. Keep your top 4 guys. And if I'm not mistaken, Rocha and Finstock have spoken of next season already, and how that managerial role will be filled, if it won't be filled by Finstock or not. And we'll see if there are the tensions, because 4th round Rocha still memed to this day, and that was 4.5 months ago.
Yeah, I'm over the 4th round Rocha stuff. But then again, like I said, I am a Finstock Exchange super fan. Like that's my faction.
I want to see how the Finstock Exchange handles the rest of the season.
What makes all this interesting to me is that you have to renegotiate with these players that you want to keep. Now, Rocha's gone on record saying that his girlfriend does not want him playing for Tom.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, does that end up playing a factor in? Because he's like, she wants me to play for Roxy. She likes Roxy, and
does she take Dan?
Exactly. Well, Christian even said in his explanation, if Dan wants to sign with X and Rocco wants to sign with B, then the founding fathers are split up.
And just to go back to the four signings real fast.
Yeah.
So say we have, how many factions do we have now? 9? 10? 9. So that's 36 players just taken right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right. Now, these first round picks, we're not going to see.
It's not like in the NFL or in the NBA when that first round pick is a potential star player.
You're not going to get studs in the first round.
Right. This is filling out that middle tier of your roster that they can, any given day, they might be able to show up or they might not be able to. And
you mentioned earlier that in sports, usually it's like trades first, then free agency. And going back to, if we're using sports as an analogy, we should, oh God. And I know it's a hard sell and it must be hard for the people within it, but I kind of don't like the fact that I don't like the keeping of players.
Well, here's my thing. And I kind of agree to that.
In regards to a draft.
I kind of agree to that, but to call it keepers also is wrong because in a keepers league in like fantasy football,
like what they did,
no matter what.
Like what they did with the last draft.
Yeah, that's more keepers because you got to keep the champions. That's the only, and people are like, oh well, Finstock got set up. What if the founding fathers lost that match? They wouldn't have been protected.
Mm-hmm.
What if? So he would have only had Ben and Riley. The founding fathers could have ended up on another faction.
Mm-hmm. But it just rubs me the wrong way.
Here's my thing. What he's proposing isn't a true keepers league. A true keepers league is I'm protecting A, B, C, and D if you're protecting 4 players, and that's who I get to keep. I personally feel each manager should only be able to protect 1 team or 1 player. So at most 2 keepers. And then everybody else goes to the draft.
I could not agree with you more. Because that not only knocks the number in half of players that are being kept or that are being signed in this case, but it also allows for a better draft.
Right.
Like
teams to be created.
How many rounds of this draft do you? Because they had how many rounds? 10.
They had 6 that were broadcast, and then another 3 or 4 that were just through email and whatnot.
So they had sent 9 or 10 rounds overall, and you want people to watch this draft, obviously. But honestly, especially with how these cuts just happened, you just cut a lot of the 8th
mid-tier
round
talent.
Like, yeah. And now these people are going to be first round, second round, third round draft picks. If we're doing the keeping of the 4, the signing of the 4. I don't want to say keeping, but signing of the 4.
That's what he called it. But yeah, I agree. If you're doing the signing of the 4, it doesn't make sense.
I cannot agree with you more. Like, keep 1 team
or 1 player.
Or 1 player, and you will everybody else goes into the draft.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, everyone would go into the draft. Everybody. And you do a lottery for how it
pans out or random.
And for the rest of the season, with your points, those are your odds. That just increases your odds of getting higher.
I wouldn't agree to that one because that would mean the best team would have the best chance of getting the number 1 pick.
And and that's the way you're going to have to do it in order to convince these managers to drop all of their players, essentially.
Yeah.
Because some of these teams are stacked, and we mentioned that before we started going live. Like, the Finstock Exchange is stacked. I think the Rockstars are stacked, like, especially after these new acquisitions. And
that is the team I really feel that's stacked.
And to tell these managers, hey, you get to keep 1 team or 1 player. Everybody else is going to a draft. You have to make it enticing, and you have to make them want to do it. So if you have a better record at the end of the season, then you get a better pick to start with.
Right.
And And people, and like you said, people were saying it was unfair for Finstock to keep everybody. He kept the Horseman intact. Fourth round Roker or not, he was still protected. It was just a matter of when he could have been drafted first. Who cares? But it was still protected, unlike a lot of other players. So I honestly think you got to make it enticing for the managers in order for them to drop everybody instead of it being, let me keep half my team and everybody else goes to the draft. Sign or keep a couple and have everybody else go. But if it was up to me, everybody's going.
See,
make it like if we're trying to do more fun, like have it more fun and more spontaneous.
And he's also trying to make it more like a sports league. That's the other thing. He keeps saying, I want this to be considered a real sport.
Then don't do a draft of this caliber.
Right. You got, that's why the one player or one team makes sense, because then switch to a 4-round draft. So then rounds 1 through 4 are still, you have star caliber players out there. And then after that 4th round, it's everyone's undrafted free agent. And those people, the people who fell through the cracks, are free to sign with whoever they want. Instead of doing that, here's rounds 7 through 10, and they're not.
Like I'm curious to see how this, if they do a draft every year, because I think doing a draft every year, you're doing a disservice to factions and fans. Because not only is there, like, especially if we keep doing this signing and keeping thing, it's not gonna, we're gonna see some people stay with some factions for the entirety of their Schmoedown careers, and I like the difference. I like being different. I like the changes.
Right.
It keeps me on my toes, and it keeps the league refreshing. But if we're gonna do essentially, you sign for, and everybody else goes into a draft,
it doesn't make sense.
Your top 40 players will be taken, and you expect the draft to still be this hot commodity. It won't.
I mean, sure, you could have new talent coming in from the fan leagues and whatnot, but
totally.
But that's still a crapshoot. You don't know how they're going to perform.
And not everyone that watches the Schmoedown watches the fan leagues.
I know you and I don't. We keep talking about they're from the fan leagues. Don't know much about them.
We don't know who these, like, I didn't know who Chance was, who Oyama was, who Parker was before. I watched them play in the Schmoedown. Yep. They told me they're from the fan leagues. Great. I don't watch them I don't watch the fan leagues. And if you're expecting this crop of talent, because not everybody that's in the league now will be in the league next year. That's just a fact. And if you're expecting people to tune in to a draft where their favorite 40 players are taken off the board before they can even be in a draft, it's almost like anticlimactic. It's not gonna. Yeah. You're expecting a lot of lower round players that were just drafted now to be the cream of the crop come January.
Right.
And it's hard for me to
get behind that.
Yeah, if there's I like the idea of people like Ethan, John, Andrew, Ben, Riley, Merle, like Damon, Kalinowski. I like all of them being in a draft, right. But then to break kayfabe for a second, a lot of these guys have pull. Like Kalinowski, I don't know if it was for character or not. He's like,
Shannon.
Like if I'm not with Shannon, I'm not doing this. And Roka's threatening to retire every other week. And
he's like, if I'm not, and similar to him, if I'm not with Dan, I don't know if I'm doing this stuff. That's what Roka's basically been on.
So it's almost a catch-22 where you have no choice but to accommodate to your players. But at the same time, it's like, yes, us as fans, we're like, I want to see a Kalinowski under the Rockstars, under Roxy again.
Right. And that was actually an example that Christian used when he was talking about this. He's like, so we're in free agency, and Roxy's like, hey, why don't you give me another chance? Look what I've done now. I know you've been with Shannon, but how crazy would it be to just pull you away from her and we have this? And it's like, yeah, that's the interesting stuff. But when you're doing that you're giving them 4 players to mess with, that's not making this, sure, free agency becomes fun. Your draft becomes an afterthought. That's just what happens. Your draft becomes an afterthought.
Telling you. Exactly. Like, it's almost like who's left. It's not about like, ooh, who's going to draft Roka. No, Roka's already taken. He already went to the Rockstars, hypothetically.
I mean, and granted, we had that this year, but that's just because champions and top 5 teams were protected. Champions were protected, and then top 5 teams had the ability to stay together.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and it was still more interesting watching it this year because we knew, hey, it's literally just these 5 people are protected. You had Schmetz was protected. You had the Horsemen because Ben and Riley, they were a team top 5 ranked. They get to stay together. We have the champion team and Roka and Merle. They get to stay together. Schmetz is the Intergeeking champion. Damon doesn't have a manager, so he got to go in the draft. That's why I liked watching the draft this year. I genuinely didn't know where people were going to go. And if you're taking that away from me, I know that this is a business that kind of relies on views. I don't know if you'll have my view because all the players that I care about are going to already be picked up.
The idea that and I get it. It's the excitement. You're trying to take that excitement that you had at this past draft and really extend it for a longer period of time. And with the free agency that we're going to get in the month at the end of the season, that's going to be cool. That's going to be really fun to tune into, and I want to see where people are going to go. But then the second that's done, the draft. And, who's your first pick in the draft? And I brought up the R&B draft picks earlier. He got a first-round draft pick in the trade with Sam, right?
Yeah. But that's not ever going to equal a player of Ethan's caliber, basically.
Never. Unless someone really slips in the cracks,
leagues.
Or the fan leagues comes and just tears something up without the other managers noticing it and signing this player. Who is going to be a first-round caliber pick that makes an Ethan Irwin trade now worth it? Hopefully we don't look back at it like this, but I'm expecting to look back at these R&B trades in January and be like, damn, he really just screwed himself over. Yeah. And I don't know if R&B or any of the managers knew about the new draft changes prior to the trades.
Oh, he said this. He said this is all fluid. It's not finalized. And like I said before, I know he listens to shows like this. I hope he's listening and takes what we said into consideration. Because I think a lot of fans would agree that having 4 players protected per team is just too much still.
Yeah. It's a lot, and it's going to change. Something about this will change by draft time. It's not. There's no way it stays like this, especially with the constantly changing landscape that we're in right now. I'm curious.
Once you look at it, it actually seems more like an overcorrection because before were people complaining, oh, the teams were saved and this, that, and the other. You realistically only had 5 teams that were safe, and 2 of those 5 teams, or 2 of those 6 teams, because it was champions and the top 5. Mm-hmm. So 1/3 of those teams were protected by one manager already. So you had 4 other teams that were just protected.
And I like the drafting of teams. I honestly do dig that. Instead of doing maybe 10 picks, and I'm gonna use the Shazam as an example. Maybe if you were to draft Shazam again, you just draft them both together and you have 10 slots.
Yeah.
Or you have 8 slots to make it even. Just pick them at once. Don't do the whole I'm gonna get Bibbs now and Meyer later. No, just do the whole.
And that's what we were just talking about with signing them. Because if you're protecting one player or one team, hey guys, I want to keep Shazam together. I want to have both of you on my team. I want you to be my protected team or player.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to do 4. I think 4 is pushing it. I see what he's trying to do, but I think 4 is too much. Have it be a team or one player, and then the draft decides everything else. I think it only makes it more fair, and it makes it more fun as a viewer. It makes it more
interesting because
it makes it more interesting too.
We could end up with a team like the Founding Fathers splitting up. We could end up with Mike leaving Corruption. Mike's not going to leave Corruption, so now that Chance let's face it, Mike's not leaving corruption.
Yeah, corruption is named after him. Are you joking? Like he's not going to be corrupted.
So like in this case, let's say Chance gets this really good offer from say like a Winston. I want to make you my premier player.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't Chance say, "Hey, I know you wanted to do a protected team, but you're getting a protected player. I'm going with Winston because he's promising to make me a star."
There you go. And that's the stuff I want to see.
Yeah.
The 4 slots you're leaving it up in the open. We're gonna see Finstock keep the Horseman again. It depends on how the season pans out. But if we aren't going to see Roka with the Horseman, he's going to take Dan with him to whatever faction he's going to go to,
right?
And it could possibly lead to stacked factions leading into a draft. There is a version of this where it's like Merle, Roka, who else? Parker and Damon. Right? Totally feasible. That could totally happen. And that is like you have a potential Inner Geekdom champion, you have a potential Star Wars champion, and potential tag champs and a singles champ amongst them.
Yeah.
And they could all be under our Robert Meyer Burnett.
I would say probably Roxy would be the more real.
Okay, let's use Roxy for this example. So that's the rock stars going into a draft. Like, oh my God. And then the other 36 players that will be taken amongst the other factions, or the potentially around 30 or 40 players taking them amongst other factions. Like, what's the appeal in a draft?
Yeah.
You're stacking teams ahead of time.
At that point, you just got to do completely free agency and say, forget the draft.
Yeah, like just have people sign, don't do a draft. Or if you're going to do a draft, commit to a draft, put everybody in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the first pick should be a champ. Like the champ should realistically go first.
The first 4 picks should be champs. You have 4 leagues.
Yeah, like you can keep teams together. You can keep have Real Rejects go and 1 pick. Have Shazam goes 1 pick. If the Founding Fathers still want to be a team, have them go as 1 pick.
And if you pick a team similar to this year, that's your next 2 picks.
Yeah, you just don't have a pick in the next round. Simple as that. Like, and it's not. And maybe there's like logistically a way that we're making it sound easier than it really is. But at least to me, if you're going to commit to a draft, do the draft. Don't have your team picked out before that and then go into a draft. Finstock did it by circumstance.
Nature of it.
His was an accident. A couple questions aren't answered, and we don't see the Finstock exchange as powerful as it is now.
Right.
And that's all it takes. Finstock's team being stacked was a matter of circumstance. If you're to pick 4 incredible players to start a team, and you got to fill out a draft, and especially with how many factions you're going to have, your top 50 players are going to be gone. Like, I can't name 50 players I think that I'm a fan of, I
might be able to name like 10 or 20 at most.
Yeah, and what made the draft so enticing was that you didn't know where people were going to go. And the shock, granted, it didn't pan out for my man, but the shock of James White going in the 2nd round, those are the moments that you want out of a draft.
Right.
And you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get those moments of of the Wild Berries getting split up. You will not get that because they're going to be taken. If you're in a pool of 40, Makuga's getting taken. Elliot Dewberry's getting taken. At least one of them. So you'll know that going into a draft. Do a draft, commit to it. Have every single person in it. But like I said, to break kayfabe for a second, there's no way in hell players will agree to that. And we will lose some in the process. There are people that that aren't going to want to compete because of their pre-existing relationships with other managers or with other players. So it's going to be a catch-22 either way. But it's either, in my opinion, commit to a draft or at least do what you said, do a one player, 1 team type of gimmick, and then do the draft, or everyone's getting signed. Everyone has to get signed. Forego a draft. Have a signing special. You can still go live on YouTube and announce the signings.
Schmoedown. Let's take a page out of the book of LeBron James. Schmoedown, the decision. Each player, each of the major players, just come up and say, "I've decided I'm going to sign with this person."
Yeah. Or if the player
can't be there, drama you could have on stage at that point. It's kind of what you did with the free agent special. That's basically what that was.
You just do it on a larger scale. Like it can be done, and maybe we're making it sound too easy, but for the sake of like, I want to see this because that's what I want to see. When, to use wrestling as another example, when they do their drafts, like obviously the champs go first, or the people that are championship caliber go first. Like in the most recent crazy draft that WWE did, everyone was on the table. Everybody was on the table. And of course you had champions go in the first few picks, but then there were some superstars that jumped champions because of their potential. And that's the crazy part you can do, and you can still keep it on edge. So say there's a draft, and Merle goes first. Merle is the first overall pick. The second pick might be someone who a manager believes can beat Dan if Dan's still champ. Like you can still have those moments and arguably make it more interesting. Like it's I want to see how this pans out. I'll be surprised if it still stays in this shell that it's in right now, at least in regards to the draft. But boy, what a bomb to drop. Yeah. And I wonder if the managers knew that before making the trades for Pitts. I really want to know. I want to say no.
Yeah,
because then it makes the R&B trades look kind of sus.
Exactly.
But I'm curious. I really am curious into how all this pans out. But overall, boy, what a twist.
Yes, and what an episode.
Yeah, holy God.
Yeah, 1.5 hours.
Not even just fly by, dude.
Yeah, but just some housekeeping things. Tomorrow we do have an episode of Saber Reels. I don't know if you want to jump on that, and I know I'm starting to fill that out. Tomorrow 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we got an episode of Saber Reels, our Star Wars show. Saturday or Sunday, as always. This week we get to go at 7 p.m. again, our normal time. Thank God. For Real Talk, 6 p.m. your time.
Yes, 6 p.m. Central Standard.
Yes, and then Monday we are coming back with Final Buzzer. Some non-normal show stuff we got going on. We have the What Trivia Challenge, our little crew version of the movie Trivia Schmoedown. Same rules, same everything, basically. And it's just going to be,
can't tell.
Yes, and it's just going to be the entire Watt crew going at it as if it was a Schmoedown double elimination tournament and see what goes on there. And then yesterday we got Chris to agree to do a watch along for Jordan Peele's Us. So we're gonna be doing that with the really scared boys, the spooky boys, as they said they want to be called.
The spooky boys, yep, for sure.
We're gonna be doing that with the spooky boys real soon. So
one thing in regards to Us, so I haven't seen it. I know little to nothing about it. I love that you guys just get you guys like, oh, like we got to get Chris to watch horror movies because it is funny. Like I'll be the first person to say that it is funny watching my pain, watching horror movies, and our Midsummer watch-alongs on the channel, and our Pet Sematary 2019 one's on the channel, and they're both.
That one had the best reaction, Pet Sematary, when you just
Pet Sematary. God bless America. But watching Us is going to be a lot of fun, and if I told you that if Taylor and Connor are the scary boys or the spooky boys, if they want to do
watch along, you'd be down. You'd be down.
They just have to. I have to clear the film. I'm down to watch Us.
Finally, after a month or two of begging and pleading,
I will watch Us. But my God, at some point, can't we just watch maybe a horror movie I've seen so I know what I'm getting myself into?
No, that's.
Can we watch Scream? No. Like I want to have a commentary on Scream with the spooky boy.
Maybe a commentary. But that reminds me. Sunday on Real Talk, we will be having our reviews for Capone and Scooby-Doo or Scoob. So yeah, we got to get to watching in the next 24 hours to 48 hours. So, but yeah,
it'll be good. It'll be good. Two completely different movies and we're going to review them both on the same show. It's going to be great.
So it's going to be great. But thank you for everyone who tuned in. Thank you for everyone who watched. And thank you for the people who support us, whether it be our friends or family. So signing off, I'm Matt.
I'm Chris.
And remember, people spin from the reel, not the peg.
Hell yeah, brother.